Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to do an overall market update just because we have seen some pullbacks, and so I wanted to go over kind of what that means, where if we can figure out or at least take a maybe half decent guess at where it could be going next and some of the things like that. So let's go on ahead and dive right in. So as we can see, we're back to red again. I know we had a little bit of a relief over the past week and a half to 2 weeks, but we definitely are back to red again. CKB is the only one that is currently green. I guess helium is green as well, but basically everything else is red. We've got a couple other tiny green ones here and there, but as we can see, it's an overwhelming red day. ETH down 6%, which is kind of crazy. Sol another 5, Jasmy 7, ICP 7, Fetch 6. Like there's a lot of pretty big red bubbles on the chart here. We can see Bitcoin 2.8%, not as bad. Caspa 5. Not great overall, right? And so, what we can see here over the past 24 hours is we've seen $165 million liquidated, 146 of that almost being longs. I don't think this comes as too much of a surprise. The only thing here that is a little bit surprising to me is we see actually the majority of liquidations are sitting within Ethereum rather than Bitcoin, which I would say is fairly surprising. Usually the liquidations kind of lead the way based on their market caps, but Ethereum has fallen very, very hard. So I guess that does make a little bit of sense. But yeah, I mean, obviously a ton of longs liquidated. Obviously, we talked about this on the channel, I believe on Fridays is when it was, but I just don't get it, right? Like we can see in the liquidation chart, which we will be getting to in a second, but we can see when this stuff flips. And so as I'd mentioned, at that point in time, things had flipped again from liquidating shorts to liquidating longs. Prices had pumped. People were starting to get very, optimistic and, super bullish within the larger market. And of course, what happens? Boom, $146 million liquidated. So, this is something where hopefully, if you guys are watching my channel and listening, you're not getting caught up in this. As we can see, as a percentage, basically it's like the vast majority being longs liquidated. Hopefully you're not getting caught up in this because, I do really think that this liquidation chart is a cheat code. And I think if you did nothing but trade based off of that chart, you do quite well for yourself. The only thing that it doesn't really do is explain timing, which is kind of tough, particularly when you're trading leverage. But, I do think as far as predicting the overall direction of the market, it's wildly accurate. At least it has been over the past, several months that I've been watching it. So, We'll continue to be watching that very closely on the channel, just because I do think it is very valuable. Moving over to the charts, we can see, we did kind of move above this point of resistance, settled back down onto it, and then actually did break through it, and then, since continued to fall. What we could see here, we could potentially see a bounce just because of kind of where we're sitting at. We've got a little bit of resistance here and then a little bit of support at this level over here. I do think it's possible that that we settle here, or potentially we come back down to this level, and this could be maybe the next point of support, and then after that we'd be looking at potentially bouncing off the bottom of the channel again. And so if we did that, obviously there'd be quite a bit further to fall, and we would be looking at kind of the like 52 to 52,500 range, depending on kind of when we were to get there. But that's ultimately what that would be looking like. If we do look at Ethereum, we can see Ethereum has done really poorly. Sorry, let me get this zoomed properly. We can see it's done, really poorly. It's actually almost come down back to where it's like wicked down into a couple times. And as I've mentioned before on the channel, if we do break this support, things get real bad for Ethereum. They get real bad real quick. Probably moving down to like the 1700s, potentially the 1500s after that. So, not a super rosy picture for Ethereum if this does get broken. Obviously, we do have a little bit of a ways to go. The support sits at about 2130-ish, and we're at about 2260. However, if we do look at like the macro chart, we are sitting on a tiny bit of support at this point in time. But if we break through this, I would imagine a continuation down to this level, because there's not really much between here to support it. Even at this point, like, Ethereum is sitting in, I would say, a relatively precarious situation. So obviously things not looking great for Ethereum so far, but that doesn't mean, they'll look bad forever. We just gotta essentially just sit on our hands and wait until we see, it's kind of some confirmation, especially if we're looking to enter trades. So anyway, as you can see, I do all my charting within Margex. If you are interested, they do allow leverage trading up to 100x leverage. They do, they've got a lot of the coins that I talk about on the channel very consistently. Obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, ICP, Jasmy, Kaspa, a lot of those types. So if you are interested and want to do that, feel free to check out the link in my description below. As I've said multiple times, and I will continue to say, we are playing the market on hard mode right now. So this is not for the faint of heart. So just be very careful if this is something that you want to do. You can do very well doing it, but just be very careful, a word of warning. So anyway, moving on, let's look at liquidation levels. As I've mentioned, I do think this is a cheat code. I basically only look at Bitcoin just because Bitcoin has the deepest liquidity. And so in my opinion, if we're looking to hunt stop losses, it's going to be on Bitcoin, and also Bitcoin tends to move the wider market. So I just think it tends to make the most sense looking at Bitcoin. So what we can see, we did see late last week that this did actually flip, and it was more favored to liquidating longs. Obviously, we can see that has flipped back, and we're now looking at liquidating shorts. Again, anything basically sub 60,000, there's quite a bit going on in here. And then if we look at the 7-day, now this is interesting because we still are biased towards liquidating longs, which would indicate that we do have a further bit to go. Now I'm seeing, if we look at the steepest rise in liquidations based on price, it would be all the way down to about 57,000. So that'd be about a further $1,500 per Bitcoin drop from where we are currently, which obviously, isn't too much. And we've seen things, do this in the past where, maybe we see a mega wick down to, 57 and then come right back up. So, I do think that does potentially remain to be within the realm of possibilities. And then 30-day, obviously, we still are very biased towards liquidating shorts, which would indicate a move up for Bitcoin. However, I don't think this is going to happen. Like I said, a little bit earlier in the video, I do think this liquidation map is very, very good at giving us a good sense of where price is going to go. However, when, that is where things get a little bit more murky, and that's where there's kind of a little bit of a finesse involved in terms of using it to trade within the market particularly. So, I think it's still very clear that there is pressure toward the upside on a longer term time frame. But at the very short term time frame, 7-day, I do think we could continue to see a move down just based on what we're seeing here. And then obviously 1 day, it is tilted towards, this to me means potentially one of two things. Maybe we see kind of a quick relief bounce, liquidate some of these shorts that have piled up, and then we continue down based on what we're seeing on the 7-day, maybe hit the 57 range, and then maybe continue to bounce back up like what we're seeing in the 30-day and see maybe a sustained move to the upside. But again, as we've seen on the chart, we're kind of at the middle of where this channel is so far. And so, a downside would indicate down to about 52, and then a move to the upside would indicate a move to about 66 roughly. So we do have quite a bit of range in terms of, breaking the larger structure that we've been trading in basically since the beginning of March. So, we do have a lot of flexibility. I do think, it's possible. I'm going to be watching, especially if we're trading actively within the market. I would be looking at not the daily candles, but probably the hourly to see if we could find some support. And then if we could, maybe looking for a bounce. Otherwise, if I'm trading this on a macro sense, in more of a long-term buy and holder of Bitcoin, I honestly am kind of looking at this range ultimately. I think we probably see another bounce down to the bottom end of this channel. As we have seen, we do have this liquidity zone here. And so I just think, especially as we draw further on in this channel, we can actually see if we were to teleport down to 52K right now, we would both be hitting this liquidity zone and bouncing off the bottom of this channel. So, we are at the point where I'm looking very closely at this because I do think we see a further continuation down and then a bounce up before we even make an attempt at breaking this upper bound. So again, not financial advice, this is just my opinion, but just based on kind of the pressure and the overall sentiment that I'm seeing within the market, I would guess that that's kind of how that's going to look. Here's one of the major reasons why. We can see Bitcoin quarterly returns. The median is actually negative, although the average is positive, just because we did have some pretty, particularly 2017, 80% in Q3, obviously does a lot to buoy some of these smaller negatives. But if you do look at the number of times, it's actually been -7 times where it's actually only been +5. So it is, Q3 itself is a lot more tilted towards the negative. And then if we look at September specifically, we can see both the average and the median are down at about 4.5% roughly, right? And we're at about 0.5%. So this to me would indicate at least another 4% to fall, which would put us at about 54, 55-ish range. So not too bad. Obviously, that's still well within the channel if we were to follow kind of, historical. But, we can see, 19%, 13%, 7%, 7%. Like there's a lot of options here. And if we look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times negative, 3 times positive. So it's very, very common. I guess this one's still pending. But even still, 8 times negative, 3 times positive. So, history's definitely very much not on our side. But to that point, we got October, and then also, November being very good as well. Both October and November have historically been very, very good for Bitcoin. And so that's kind of, one of the reasons I think we could see a final move down to the bottom end of that channel, and then potentially a bounce up to the upper side. And then, hopefully we break through it. And then from there, I think things could get a little bit wild from there. So anyway, those are just kind of my thoughts on the market based on, where we're sitting today. This move down, I'm sure is going to feel maybe not frustrating. I guess maybe frustrating, but like not fear inducing, right? It's just more of like, geez, this again, right? Like I feel like it would be frustration more out of impatience rather than fear. At least that's kind of my take on it. You guys may be feeling differently, but ultimately, like this is not at all scary to me. The only point at which I would start to maybe get a little bit afraid is if we broke out of the channel to the bottom side. At that point, I'd be like, maybe things aren't looking too good. But so far, like I've got absolutely no fear, no concerns as far as what we're seeing, in the market. So hopefully this video was helpful and provided some useful information to you. If it did, please do leave me a like and a subscribe. It really does help me out. I am trying to grow my channel and continue the reach that I'm able to get within the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully provide other people this hopefully useful information. So anyway, if you did, like I said, please do like and subscribe. That really does help. Also, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything like that, please do drop them in the comment section below. I do read and respond to all of them. So, if you do want to communicate with me, that would be a great way to do so. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.